5. Let's get into it. This week we're going to talk about event marketing and promotions. Okay, right. So when you're marketing sports, it's a little different than marketing other things. All right, people tend to recognize their sports teams and their sports brands pretty easily, and they connect with those brands and teams very heavily. Right. So every time someone goes to watch a sporting event, is a different experience for them, right? Because each sporting event has its own thing or has its own flavor or um, excitement points, right? Basketball, it's kind of upbeat and really fast. So is football. Baseball is a little bit slower, but also has its exciting moments called tennis and so forth and so on. So um, as people start to figure out what they want to go to as far as sporting events, um, you know, they have to think about their budget, right? And how much it's going to cost them. And you got to remember that the price of the ticket isn't just all that's involved with going to an event, right? There's the other stuff, the driving, the gas, the food, the beverage, maybe, some purchase of a team apparel or sporting event apparel, right? And so there's other costs associated with it, with fans that are, going to the game. So you have to make sure that, you give the folks, a really quality product for the money they're spending, right? And then gotta remember that these events are all social events, right? People come there, they gather and kind of celebrate or promote their teams as a unit, right? And so you'll see, fans on the wave, or they'll all be wearing the same, jersey or something like that. And so it's a very, community-driven event where people, of course, come together to, root for their teams, but they're also the opposition, right? That you have to think about. The other side is coming to root for their team. And so it creates this competitive environment without actually having the athletes involved when it comes down to the feeling for the fans. Okay. So some typical aspects of a marketing plan, right? Is data analysis, right? There's marketing goals, objective, target markets, marketing tactics, implementation, and assessment, right? So you're looking at how to approach the consumer and the target market. All right, you have to really do your homework to see what's not going to work or what will work. All right, what price point are we looking at? You have to understand the demographics of the community that you are trying to bring into the venue. Okay, um, and it may not make much sense right now, but as you look at different sports, there's different costs associated with them, right? And you have to kind of go back all the way to people's childhoods and figure out, okay, when did this love of the sport begin, right? And so um, when it started, was it, when a person started playing or started participating in a sporting event, was it because, their parents made them? Was it because they wanted to? Was it because it was the cheapest sport to participate in? So you have to take all these things into account as to building your marketing plan and figuring out, okay, um, how did people get started in the sport, and are they in the same kind of position they were when they first started enjoying the sport and being part of it, right? You have to market to certain things. You may create some nostalgic marketing approaches that will go back to try to connect the childhood feeling with the sport, right? But when it comes to marketing and trying to make sure you get the proper customer target market, and price point is always a concern, and you don't want to price yourself out of getting the consumer to come. Okay. So the marketing plan itself is just the document kind of outlining the activities that need to happen, right, for an event. okay, to be successful. When you put together a marketing plan, of course, like any other plan, it's a process, right? Where you have to kind of look at what you're trying to get to, uh, look at the data that is available, right? And based on the data, you kind of formulate a plan or a strategy in which you're going to leverage the data and what the data is telling you, in order to create a plan that is very robust and does the job of bringing people into the venue. Okay. um, to do an effective marketing plan to make good decisions, you need to have an understanding of the internal and external environment. And it's kind of where some of the business aspects come in, where you could probably do a SWOT, right, or SWOT E. You do an analysis of the strength, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, in the external environment of your community or your surroundings, of the space, to really see, what's going on, right? From the internal aspect, you want to see what, that makes the event or location unique, right? What makes it a draw for people to come, right? For an external environment consideration, you have to look at some of the social trends, right? What's in fashion now? What legal things do I need to consider? Again, demographic trends, economic issues I stated before, and the economic issues and demographic trends, demographic trends are an important aspect, because those will those things are going to drive how much you market and how well you market, at what price point you are going to decide to give access to the sports fans, right? Because if you don't know, ticket sales, tickets, anything having to do with sales and tickets falls in the marketing range, right? Falls in the marketing wheel. And so marketing kind of decides or has input on what price are we going to put these tickets at, right? In addition to just the cost of what it takes to put the venue on, and all the other operating costs that go along with running a business, right? So you have to look at who are your customers, and what do they need, right? What do they want, right? It's not really a need per se, but what do they want, right? What would they like to see, the desires, when you are trying to put an event, all right? Because again, you want to provide the best possible experience for them, but you have to know who you're dealing with, because each person may have something different that they're looking for, when they come to a sporting event. All right. Sometimes I go to baseball games, but I don't necessarily always go to watch the game. I'll go for a few innings, but I'm really there to walk around, check out the food, vendors, see all the other things kind of that are around the area that I might enjoy doing, because there's always other things going on in the periphery aside from the games, right? There's other activities, because most sporting teams understand that not everyone sits to watch the game, right? So people come and they start watching the game, but they may get disinterested and they want to do something else, because they may have kids there with them, and the kids don't necessarily want to sit there and watch the game. They want to go, shoot some baskets, or go talk to one of the broadcasters or something like that, right? They have activities set up all the time. Okay, you have to consider who your competition is, right? Um, who am I dealing with in the local area? So if we talk about San Diego, San Diego is probably one of the more unique cities, in the sense that it's a pretty major city. It feels small at times, but we have a lot of tourism. A lot of people come to San Diego. People are very active here, but we only have real one major team here, which is the San Diego Padres. We had the San Diego Chargers. At one point, we even had the San Diego Clippers. And so, over time, we've lost those teams to other areas, because there hasn't been enough interest generated by the fan base to retain those teams, right? And not only that, in conjunction with, you know, the city officials and some of the requirements that, were levied upon them by the sporting organization, there has to be some economic incentive for the city uh, to want to retain the team, and the team has to have some economic incentive to want to stay. So there's a lot of meeting in the middle, tax benefits, some concessions that need to be made by the city, in addition to concessions that need to be made by the sporting team itself. All right. But when we look around the landscape and we figure out who the competitors are, in San Diego, we don't really have any. But if you go to LA, you know, you had the Raiders, who are now Las Vegas, but now you have the Los Angeles Chargers, you have the Los Angeles Rams, right? You have other smaller NFL or IFL, CFL, Indoor Football League, Canadian Football League. You have all these other offshoot teams that are starting to migrate into the space, the football space or the basketball space. We have, all these other leagues um, that are creating competition for the bigger leagues, right? So we want to provide, the best marketing or the best, product to our consumers, regardless of what level we're at, be it the major level, the mid-major, the lower level, the more local level, right? There's a sporting activity or sporting team or sporting event going on for each of these levels. And there's marketing that goes into this. And so the more effective the marketing is, the more likely you're going to get people to come out to your sporting event, even if it's not necessarily, a big, well-known team, right? It's not a big league, right? But people will go out to watch the games, right? Specifically here, we have, lacrosse, and we have, soccer, right? Known as football internationally, but soccer here in the United States. But in San Diego, we have a soccer team and a lacrosse team and a hockey. No, we don't have a hockey team. I can't remember if we have a hockey team or not, but I know there's one in LA. But for sure, all those teams really strive to market as best as they can so they can draw, the fans in, right? Because we want to keep the teams, kind of going. We want to keep the athletes competitive. We want the athletes to, understand that there's a value that they add and that we want to watch them play. And I want to watch them participate in whatever sporting event it is. All right, this table just illustrates some techniques when you're doing market research, right? Of course, it's internal data that's within the company that you're going to use, to kind of assess, what we've done before, right? What has been done before internally by the company, okay? Secondary research, right? That's things that are external to the company. That's what's out in the space, right? What's out there that we can use that's been researched by someone else, but we're going to also use it because it's good research and it works, right? Surveys, right? We asking people, what they think, either via mail, email, phone, or face to face. If you go to the mall, maybe not as much these days, but you used to go to the mall, you'd have a lot of people out there, doing surveys and that kind of thing, right? Personal interviews and focus groups, social media research, right? That's probably a bigger deal now than before. People out there soliciting folks to participate in their research programs. Participant observation, right? When you're just kind of looking at people and how they behave in their normal environment with no, influence or interaction, right? It's kind of seeing, hey, how can we assess people in their natural setting, right? Then you have mystery shopper, which you see from time to time when someone goes into a store and acts like they're a consumer when they're actually evaluating the whole, experience, from a customer perspective, right, for the company. Okay. So understanding the consumer, right? You have to understand, what's important to the consumer, right? Why are they there, right? Well, why wouldn't you come to a specific event, okay? And what do consumers expect from the event, right? When sporting events, especially, People come because they like to watch sports, right? They were probably at one point or another actively engaged in that sport, in their youth, and they've continued to enjoy the sport, maybe from a capacity of watching. But that's how they kind of, you know, experience the sport, the love of the sport vicariously through the athletes. Okay. In many instances, people don't go to sporting events because they're expensive, right? Tickets are expensive, as I mentioned before. The whole process, costs money, and we're just talking about one person. Imagine a family's going to a sporting event. They will more than likely have already spent 500 to 600, maybe even $1,000 just to participate in the event between tickets, transportation, food, drinks, buying stuff for the kids, hats, t-shirts, whatever it is, right? They're gonna run, it's gonna run pretty high for a family of four, all right, even three. So, that might be some things that keep people away. The weather, depending on the type of stadium we're looking at, right? Depending on the type of venue we're looking at, the weather may keep people away because it may be too cold or maybe too hot. It won't be enjoyable for them, so they don't necessarily want to go. The venue may be in a part of town that is not necessarily where people like to go, right? Or the venue may be old, and people just don't want to go to an old venue. Okay. All right. Some, common consumer motivations, right? Of course, consumers are always motivated by achieving the performance, right? The better the team is doing, the more likely you're going to get people to come, right? Because people want to see the team winning, right? We're on a roll. We're 8-0. We're doing well. We want to, support our team. Let's get out there and be the best fans that we can be. Another one is health and fitness, right? People want to, stay engaged. So they may very well stay engaged with the sport, but also, use, going to the sporting event as a way in which to, you know, themselves maybe look at some things that they may be doing wrong by watching the pros do it. All right. And then going back and then using that as an example, like, oh, you know what? I like that move that, like John Morant made or like LeBron made. I like that. I like that move. I'm going to practice that when I get home, or I just want to practice it so I could participate maybe in the event at a lower level, all right, or just in general, right? I mean, just do it for fun, okay. Of course, fun and entertainment. Um, Socialization is a big one, right? Because we have tailgating and we have all these other pre event activities, right, that we do, right? And we socialize, we get our friends together, even if it's at home, right? We'll have a fight party. We'll have, at this moment, the World Cup is now going. A lot of people are gathering together, to watch the World Cup. And it's a social activity, right? Watching your favorite teams, competing against each other. And so you get to socialize and go back and forth and just banter with your friends and family, and just a good time, and everybody enjoys themselves and eat and drink, and it's just a good event. It's a good bonding experience. Okay. National pride, of course, is always some of the motivation, right? Especially now, like as I mentioned, the World Cup is here. People are out to show their colors, right? To advocate for their country as being the best in the world, and just wanting to show that, hey, we are proud of our country. We're proud of the performance. We're proud of our athletes. Right? Okay. Some consumer constraints, right? Lack of success or skill, right? Sometimes people don't necessarily want to come because they feel like they're not good enough at the sport itself. So maybe they shouldn't, go check it out, or maybe they just don't want to participate because it's just not interesting to them, right? Because they're not good at it, right? Sometimes people don't like to go alone, right? People want to go with someone else. So if you don't have anyone to go with, you may not go to a sporting event. You may watch it on TV. You may even go to a bar, but you may not want to go to an event by yourself, right? So that's always I think time constraints, okay, as I said before, weather issues, economic limitations, to me, probably should be at the top, because usually that is what holds people back, especially if you're middle class, lower class folks who would like to go to the events, but tickets are expensive now. Don't get me wrong, the sporting venues always, have tickets that are reasonably priced. They are also, though, very, very high up, or they're not the best seats in many cases, right? But the whole point is that, you can afford to buy a ticket and be part of the environment, be part of the experience, and you may not necessarily see everything, but you'll see people around you, you interact and you can talk to each other and discuss, what you do see, and cheer the team on. Just be there part of it. You can say, I was at the World Cup. Okay. And then you got social restrictions, right? Probably more or less recently we've had COVID, and COVID had a big impact on sporting events and events in general. And so, now we don't have any, but before, we get to a venue, the capacity would be limited. We'd have to wear masks. We'd have to be 6 feet apart. There'd be certain restrictions on, types of food vendors being available to serve, to provide their particular food that they are known for. And so you had a lot of social restrictions out there, that cause constraints for the consumer. Okay. So marketing goals and objectives, right? Goal one, increase participation in annual spring fun run, right? And of course, this is just an example. Okay. And you see the objectives, right? Retain 95% last year's participant, recruit 50 new runners, recruit 10 more engagement groups, increase number of youth participants by 15%, right? So you see all these goals and you see the objectives that we're going to have in trying to attain those goals, okay? So now let's talk about some market segmentation and target market, right? When we talk about, segmentation and target markets, we're really looking at the consumers, right? That are going to potentially be come to the event, but we're trying to garner what is the trend, what is the common characteristics among all of those consumers or that segment, right? And so we have to look at the demographics, right? And look at people's age and gender and ethnicity and income and education, and because that has an impact on what type of sports they participate in many instances, right? You got to look at the psychographic segmentation, right? Identifying groups based on psychological characteristics such as lifestyle, personality, opinions, and values, right? We have, the gay pride parade nationally, all over the place, or internationally, really. We have events that are focused on lifestyle, right? People that do things a certain way, where we have, not only, the LGBTQ community, but we have communities of people that, like the Polar Bear Club, right? Folks that drop not naked, but they pretty much swim in ice cold water. I can't remember where, but the water's freezing and they go into the water. But that's more of a lifestyle, right? That's something that they do on a regular basis. They practice it. It's part of their personality, sort of, where they're willing to try outrageous, crazy things. And it's really a very niche group, right? Excuse me. Then we have product usage, okay? Kind of identifying our consumer based on the use of certain products, right? If they use certain things, they probably will be interested in certain sports, right? If I'm using if I'm buying, basketball shoes, to wear leisurely, I'm probably more likely a basketball player. I like to play basketball, right? Or at least I enjoy watching it for the most part, right? That's usually the case. Sometimes it's not, but in many instances, if you see someone buying a particular product, Um, it usually is related to sport, and more than likely they are they have are or will participate in the sport or are engaged in it in the sense that they like to watch it and be, active in it. Okay. And then you got product benefits, identifying groups based on the benefits they seek from the event. Mm. When we talk about target market is really the segment of the population the event will be marketed to, right? So we have market segmentation where we break the market up into different pieces, but now we have to decide which piece are we actually going to hit, right? Which market are we actually going to look at, right? Who are we going to market to, all right? And so when we look at target market, we have to make the decision based on the segment's interest in the event, the likelihood of buying, size, and accessibility. Okay, these are all the things we think about when we talk about the target market. Okay, what's the interest, right? Are they really? Do we have a heavy interest that's gonna people are just die hard and they're gonna come no matter what, right? What are the chances of them actually buying a ticket and committing to the event? Okay, how many do we have, right? Is this a big group of people or just a very small group of people, right? And the accessibility really is about does the consumer have access to not only a means to get there, but a means to pay for the ticket, a means in which to come and enjoy the event as far as food, beverage, buying apparel, those kind of things, right? Do they have the time, right? That's another thing, right? As we talked about earlier. So accessibility has a lot of facets to it, right? So branding the event, right? So when we look at the brand, just the combination of name symbols and other things that identify a product and distinguish it from other things, right? So brand, when you see a brand, when you see Coke, you know what Coke is. When you see Pepsi, you know the difference between Coke and Pepsi, right? Um, those are brands, right? And so the brand conveys a certain thing, right? Conveys an image or a perception about the company. Excuse me. So the brand also, kind of identifies, what the event may be, okay, or what it's related to, right? Some event brand names as showed down below: Olympic Games, Super Bowl, Ironman, triathlon. Those things help you figure out, okay, what the event is and what it's about, and you can make a distinction between all of them and decide, which one you want to participate in. Some events, they may very well be, hey, the World Cup, I like to go. I went to 2014 World Cup in Brazil. But like I just said, it was in Brazil. Not everybody has access to that. I paid for the plane ticket, paid for housing. I had to have money to enjoy all the things that were going on and just in general, just to eat and just to be there. Right. And so again, you have to keep those things into consideration. But, I may not go to the World Cup, but I may participate in, the World Series in some form, shape, or fashion, right? Because it's closer to home and I can figure it out, right? Or the pennant race where San Diego Padres were, very close to making it to the World Series. It just, fell short, by one, by a couple of games, right? And so I could participate in that and be part of that. But, knowing what the World Series is about, or the champ, the league championships and that kind of thing, understanding, the difference between each event, then I can, decide, if I want to go and to which point do I want to go. If you're talking about a triathlon, the Ironman triathlon, consists of, a run, a cycling, and a swim event, right? And so I may not necessarily want to go to the swim event, right? Because I can't really see anything. So I say, you know what? I'm going to go for the run event or the cycling event, whichever one decide to go to, right? Um, Next thing is the event pricing, right? And so this is where, kind of the rubber meets the road for me. pricing the event, and make sure you don't price the target market out. Okay. Because you want to make sure that the price, is favorable enough to where, it covers your cost and includes some, profit margin, right? But also does not scare the participants away, right? Um, so you have to strike a very key and good balance with providing a price that is palatable to the consumer, but also serves your needs as an event manager, right? And making sure that I don't go into the red trying to put this event on, right? I don't, the point is to not only showcase the athletes, but also to make some profit, right? Because I need to pay the athletes, I need to pay myself, I need to pay the organization, I need to have money and funds to do other things in the future. And so all those things get wrapped up in the price. All right. As I said, setting the price is especially difficult for sporting events in that marketers are associating price with experience rather than a tangible good, right? Typically, from a business standpoint, I can price something as far as the product goes based on what I'm giving you as a product, right? And that is very, subjective, right? If I'm selling you a car or if I'm selling you, a piece of clothing, I know what I'm giving you, right? The car's quality or it's not quality, whatever the case may be, is tangible. But the car is a car, right? It has certain characteristics, and this is what it is. The experience is a little different, right? Because each person is going to have a different experience. And so, how do I put a price tag on that? How do I price that so that the price meets or exceeds this person's expectations as far as what they're going to experience? Okay. Because you don't want to, underwhelm, right? You want to provide a great venue with excitement and lots of things to do, and just so they come back, really, right? So, what price point um, am I going to use really to kind of, get the people to come in, but also keep my balance sheet intact? Okay. All right. Some pricing techniques here: single ticket pricing, okay, group pricing, all inclusive pricing, package pricing, variable pricing, dynamic pricing, and complementary tickets or admissions. I'm not necessarily going to go through all these, right? The thing is that there's different pricing points, right? And as I said before, right, there's a level for everyone for every economic status or income status. And so, depending on what the event is, where it's being located or being executed or conducted, there's a lot of nuance in how we put that together, right? Sometimes corporations will come in and say, hey, we want to bring in 50 execs in for this particular sporting event, and they may get a package price, right, which is different than a single ticket price. Okay, so volume may have a role to play in this, right, to figure out what the price is and how we're going to sell it. Mhm. Distribution, right? We talking about distribution. We talking about two issues related to time and location of the event, right? The year, the day of the week, the time of the day. Each influence consumers' ability to participate, right? So, you know, if you ever wonder why are events always at night, okay, or in the evening for the most part, because that's when most people are off work. Okay. We want to do it. We want to hold events. People off work and on the weekends, right? Because traditionally, as a country, Friday, Saturday, Sundays, or Friday evening, Saturdays, and Sundays are our day off. And you notice that a majority of the sporting events are during that time frame, right? Late at night. Well, not late at night, depending on what side of the country you're on, right? And who's playing. So, you'll have different time of day, year, and each sporting event has their own cycle, right? It has their own season, right? Football, it's basically from August, September, all the way through February. Basketball is October all the way till May, June. Hockey, baseball, kind of on the same cycle. Um, Track and field, tennis is year round for the most part. Golf is year round for the most part, right? But those things matter, right? Where it's at, when it's done. Day events don't do as well as evening events because people are at work, right? Doing stuff during the holiday period, right? Sporting events during the holiday period, you'll see that there's a decline in certain holidays, right? Thanksgiving, you'll see an uptick in the sports involvement because it's a tradition to do Thanksgiving and do football, right? Those go kind of hand in hand in the American society, okay? But then once Thanksgiving is over, you start to kind of see a lull as we start to get closer to Christmas, just because people are spending money on other things, right? They're spending money on gifts, they're spending money on travel to be with family, and when they're together with their family, they might, watch a sporting event, or if they can go to a sporting event, they will, right? The NBA always does a Christmas Day game. And so that's always an event that I like to participate in if I can. And so depending where I'm at, if I can get a ticket, I'll go. If not, I'll watch it on TV, whatever the case may be. But I'm participating in it with family and friends, right? Excuse me. The event marketer needs to consider access to location, perceived safety location, and proximity to transportation when designing marketing efforts, right? And I said before, right, where the venue is at is an important aspect of whether or not people will come, right? Whether or not they can get to the game, okay? Most, if not, no, I don't want to say all, but a number of sporting teams have made it their business to make sure that they coordinate with the city, and that there's a stop on whether the trolley, the train, that there's public transportation very, very close to the venue. Okay. For us, the trolley used to go straight into, right next to Qualcomm, and you'd have to walk it's a little bit, but not too far, but you could take the trolley in instead of parking, instead of driving and having to park. In Anaheim, the train literally stops at the stadium. Okay, it really stops at the stadium. You can get out and you go watch the Angels play, that kind of thing. Same thing with the crypto.com center, used to be the Staples Center. The transportation is pretty close around there, and so it's very accessible. Now the area isn't necessarily particularly 100%. It doesn't look safe, but it's relatively safe, but it doesn't look safe, right? Because there's a lot of homeless folks around there, and people just kind of just hanging around and loitering, which might make people uneasy, but at the same time, it's a relatively safe environment, right? But we got to take all these things in consideration when we are talking about, distribution. Now let's talk about some event promotion, right? Some common promotion methods: website marketing, social media, the viral marketing, advertising, sales promotion, right? So we'll have different ways in which we promote the activity, right? And when we talk about promotion, really talking about how do we communicate with the consumer, right? How do we tell them, hey, this is what's going on, this is where it's going on, this is what you may, you can expect to see, this is how much it's gonna cost, you know, all those little details, right? Very quickly, are part of the event promotion, right? But you have to really create the right message for the target market. Okay. You have to, kind of use tools that that those people that you want to come, that you're targeting, are going to be using, right? So for instance, social media is a big, platform that, event marketers use in which to promote the event, right? But that's not the only way they do it, right? They may have radio spots or TV ads or even billboards, right? To promote the event, right? Because for someone like me who's not a big social media person, I won't get the news. I won't get the information if it's based on social media or if it's distributed via social media, because I just don't participate in social media as much. But for those people that do, it's easy. But then there's other people that, they are big radio listeners. And so they get the information that way, or they stream on YouTube. So there's different venues and different ways in which, you can promote your event, but you have to make sure that you have your, what it is you want to accomplish. You have to have the message correctly for the right market. You have to use the right tools to communicate those things. All right. Sales techniques, we got personal selling, all right, email and mobile marketing, direct mail, telemarketing, and volunteer sales, right? Different ways in which to approach and to access the consumer. Okay. That's all it is. And so when we look at, really, we look at the sales techniques, we're kind of looking at, not only long-term, short-term approach or attack, but also looking at, you know, personal and not too personal interaction. Okay. Personal selling is usually more intimate, right? Because you actually have a rep that's calling and talking to you and coordinating all this stuff for you. Email, direct mail, telemarketing, volunteer sales. A lot of those folks are usually doing that through, emails and like I said, mailing, or telemarketing, through phone calls. So a lot of that is not very personal, so you kind of have to make sure that your message is succinct, concise, to the point, but direct and informational. All right. You have to make sure you get everything in a very short amount of time, especially when it comes to telemarketing and direct mail. You have to make sure that your, whatever it is you send in the mail is going to be an attention grabber, right? It's going to draw the person in so that they just don't toss the mail away, right? They just don't take it and put it in the trash, right? And so, or they don't go to the email and delete the the promotion or the sales technique, sales approach, excuse me, as junk and just dismiss it. Okay. But for the most part, if someone is interested in a particular event or trying to go to an event, they are readily receptive to all these particular techniques, right? It just when they're not interested, it doesn't matter what technique you use. The person's not interested, then they're just not interested. But for the most part, you can, you know, you can count on those folks willing to listen and to, actively be engaged in reading, being, looking forward to receiving some of these emails and phone calls and that kind of thing. You want to try to create community support, right? Reach out to all the community leaders, reach out to all your local agencies, and just try to get them involved and demonstrate the benefit of you being, or holding the event in their community, right? If you are a staple of the community or, a long-term resident of the community, as far as like a sporting team goes, then you probably, have established network with city officials from the mayor on down, right? Because at the end of the day, when we talk about city, governmental affairs, the mayor really is where the buck stops, right? So you get the mayor on down, the police commissioner, all these law enforcement, first responders, those kind of folks, the military. You go out in churches, you go out and you talk to them, right? Chamber of Commerce, you speak to all those folks and build your relationships. That way they can serve as a support network for you when you are trying to really promote your event and get your event out there. Okay. Now we're going to jump into media relations and promotion. All right. So when we talk about media relations promotion, we talked about earlier, right? We're just communicating information about the event to the target market, right? We're going to give them all the stuff they need. so they can understand what decisions they need to make in order to participate in the event, right? When we talk about promotion, it's really talking about communication strategies that put the organization's message out there, okay? Tells people something about the company or the entity and what we do, what we stand for, what we would like to provide and offer to you, all right? And what price point and what you should be expecting to see, all right? So for event managers, there's a symbiotic relationship between the media and an institution, which is critical, right? Media outlets need event managers just as much as they need, we need them, okay? Because when we talk about, YouTube or even a newspaper, right, the San Diego Tribune or New York Times or whatever, media outlet it is, they need content. Okay. They need content. Instagram, right? They need content. And so they're just as invested in this as you are as an event manager in the organization because they want to make sure that they have stuff that fills up their pages, right? So that people will come to that platform, right? Will come to that outlet because we have the information that you're looking for, right? And so it's a kind of, it's sort of a marriage in the sense that we support each other. We look to each other in a time of need and kind of try to work our relationship to to a point where it's advantageous for both, right? Because we want mutual benefit across the board, okay? And so media outlets and sports organizations or any institution really are go hand in hand, okay? So the critical R's media relations, right? Relating, retaining, and repairing, okay? When we talk about relating, we talk about, you know, um, media relations are the most popular form of public relations in the sports industry, right? We're talking about media being integrated into the sporting activity and conveying in many ways, what the activity is going to be about, who's going to be participating in it, what we should expect, some of the buildup that goes around, the sporting event, right? Sometimes, I'm a big boxing fan, UFC fan. There's certain certain fighters that I really like and that I will want to see and watch, right? So media really kind of builds up this narrative around each of the fighters, right? They try to give you a backdrop, give you a story about each one, right? This is what they're trying to do, build this relationship with not only the sporting event, but with the participants in the sporting event, right? You and I, consumers, right? The media is really trying to convey, hey, this is what the sporting event is going to be about. It's going to be fun. It's going to be interesting. These are some really interesting characters that are participating in this event. Let me take you behind the scenes, those kind of things, right? And so, as an event manager, you really rely on the media, outlets wanting to, convey the message, wanting to create a persona or wanting to, build a story around the team or the athlete, right? Now we're talking about retaining, right? We're talking about, retaining favor with the media requires special care, right? Courtesy is expected. This falls into the hands of the sports information director, right? And the city creates press release, media guides, and articles that provide the media with content, okay? So we want to retain, right? When we talk about retain, we want to maintain our relationship with the with the media, right? We want to make sure that we keep the media happy to a certain degree, right? Without necessarily compromising ourselves, because again, the media provides, it's kind of like our mouthpiece, okay? The media provides a lot of exposure for the organization, for the event, right? And we want to make sure that they're happy, that they're getting what they need, right? But at the same time, the media needs help in kind of putting the information together, right? Putting all the content together as far as, okay, hey, we need some information from you, right? The players' names, ages, some of the backdrop as to where they came from, what camp are they with, who's their trainer, is there anything else interesting about the team or the organization or the players, uh, or the boxes, whatever it is that we should know about, right? Are there some other things going on that may affect their performance? All those things go into the press release, right? Media guides and articles, right? Because we want to give the media as much information as we can so that they can create a story, right? They can create some buzz about the event. Okay. The promotional mix encompasses advertising, publicity, public relations, sponsorship, and selling, right? We're talking about the promotional mix. Promotional tools, promotion planning bodies, promotional goals, strategy, and tactics, and the budget evaluation process define your planning stage, right? Price promotion, value added enticements, sponsorship activation, excuse me. So we look at the promotion plan, got to look at really what price we're going to push, right? What price point are we going to push, right? Because we know we have tickets that are really good, right? We have floor seats, right? We have seats that are a little bit further back. We have what we call nosebleed seats, right? Seats that are really way up. You're still there, but they're further away from the action. Okay. And so which one of these seat levels are we going to promote? Right? You may not think that they think about that thing, but they do. Because do I necessarily need to promote the nosebleed seats? Maybe, maybe not, right? Because more likely people are going to come in and buy the cheapest tickets they can find, right? Because they want to get in, they want to see the sporting event, but they don't want to break the bank, right? So I don't necessarily need to promote those as much. Same thing with kind of the mid-level seats. I may promote those a little bit more, but not as much. And then the high-end seats, I may promote those, but again, depending on how the sales looks, I may put more, promotion oomph behind the higher end tickets because they're more expensive, right? But you gotta remember, with the higher end tickets, people are expecting more also, right? They get certain things that come with those higher end tickets. And so do I necessarily need to promote the high end tickets? Yes. I need to promote all of them, but which one am I going to promote the most, right? Because there's some things you just don't need to sell. You don't need to promote because they sell themselves, right? As I said, value added enticements, right? So basically looking at, okay, at this price point, you get this, you get access to, backstage, or you get, access to just sitting next to the players on the bench, those kind of things, right? And then your sponsorship activation, of course, sponsors are always there, looking to see where they can market themselves and, just kind of, be a presence at all times. Okay. So value added enticements that you'll see, that are applied, premium giveaways, theme nights, which is always a good, attracts a lot of people because people like to dress up, and those kind of things, right? Autograph sessions for sure. People will come to those, and interactive experiences, right? People want to feel like, if I do certain things, I'll be part of the game. I'll be part of the event, So you have all these interactive experiences where people can actually get on the court and shoot, or they can get on the field and cast some passes, or, hit some balls, So there's different ways in which you can add value through enticements, right? Pits and Startler's 10 Ps, right? And basically, this is just a marketing approach, okay? How do I build a good marketing plan, right? How do I build a good, platform in which I'm, providing the consumer with all the possible information I can, but highlighting, the need for them to come and participate, and to demonstrate to them what they're going to get, right? So you have purpose, product, projecting the market, position, players, package, price, promotion, place, and promise, right? And each one of these things, of course, deal with either, what are we trying to achieve here? Who we're trying to get into the, to the venue, right? And how much is it going to cost for them to come in, right? And how much is it going to cost for us to put this event on? And we are looking for a successful event. Okay. So we want to have a plan. We want to allocate resources to the plan, right? We want to do our research and figure out who we want to target, right? We want to implement those things, conduct the event, and we want to make sure the event goes off without a hitch. And then after that, we want to do kind of a, after action, or, kind of a feedback event to figure out what are the pros and cons of what we did right and what we did wrong, and how we can improve the process. Okay. All right. Social media, as we already spoke about earlier, has such a high value and provides so much benefit as far as marketing goes, right? Because when it comes to social media, um, it's relatively cost effective, right? It doesn't cost much to go on Instagram or Facebook or YouTube and to provide some content for people to see, right? And the thing is that it reaches a huge amount of people in a very quick, short amount of time. Okay. People are able to, access it at their convenience when they feel like it, right? In any place, as long as there's a connection, and they can still interact too via the social media with the team, right? With the sporting event. So um, it provides a lot of things that traditional um, marketing approaches don't have, right? Promotional approaches can't provide, right? Speed, effective, cost savings, right? Connectivity, timeliness, easy to manage, right? So there's a lot of things that can do with social media that you just can't do with other platforms. Okay. So evaluating your success, right? As I said before, you need to go back after everything is done, garner feedback from everyone, support staff, managers, event managers, leadership, the team itself, the players. You want to get as much feedback as you can, because you want to see where you can improve at, right? Where can we really, that translates to, where can we cut cost? Okay, where can we become more efficient so that we can increase the revenue, right? And by increasing the revenue, we are trying to increase the participation, right? We're trying to increase the number of people that are coming to the venue, to the event, because the more people that come to the event, the more likely it's going to contribute to more revenue, right? And more exposure for the particular event. And so we want to make sure that we are always communicating and are transparent with what we're doing internally, right? And you, go back with your teams, you revamp, revise some things, and then boom, you send it out to your target market to see, how they feel about it. Okay. What would you like to see as a consumer? We did this last year. We got a good response. Would you like for us to do it again next year? Or is there some other thing we like to see? Right. And so you always want to garner as much feedback as possible, because there's no minor changes. If one person is thinking it, and probably a number of other folks are thinking it. And so making a minor tweak here and there, going back to the city and to the community leaders and asking for certain things, and also yourself giving, to back to the community is an important part of the feedback, right? Because it's not only a give, take. You have to also give as an organization. During the season, off season, you may hold some kind of camp. You may just go into hospitals and do some community service, soup kitchens, whatever it is, right? But the organization needs to set those things up in which we are visible in the community, right? But you're not going to really know. There's certain things that you want to put on, but getting a gauge as to what the city and the people would like to see, as far as participation from the sporting events, from the sporting organization, is usually garnered through feedback. All right. Asking the consumer, asking the fans, what would you like us to see? Aside from us being here playing the sport, we also want to participate in the community, right? We want to do some community building, right? We want to come in there, maybe, do some um, Habitat for Humanity, right? Help in some house building, park building, right? Just, whatever it is we need to do for the community, we like to do that, right? And always keep the lines of communication open. All right. At this time, that concludes this week's presentation. Again, make sure you get all your work done. Okay. It's Monday. So Wednesday, you got to get your LE in. Make sure you are staying on top of your project as far as all the things you're going to need to do. If you have any issues or any problems, please contact me. Stay in communication with me. That's the easiest way to really get through some of these challenges, is to stay in communication with me and let me know what's going on. I don't need specifics, but I do need to know that there's something that is prohibiting you from completing your work on time and in the manner that is in a quality. That I need to know, right? I need to know something, so that I'm not surprised when you come to me in week 7 and say that you need to make up week 4, 5, and 6, right? That's not going to work, right? You need to contact communication with me. I will work with you to make sure that, you get what you need in light of, whatever's going on in your life, because I understand life does go on, and school is not going to stop the events of your life. And so we try to work around those things and make sure that you provide all the resources you need to help you get through whatever challenges you may face. All right. So again, have a good week. And if you need anything, please reach out. Thank you.